Welcome to the Sarah Finkelstein Show. Today is February 10, 2022. Would you like to learn how to avoid tax penalties on your IRA? There's a few situations where that is a possibility. So let's delve in. Now, of course, you probably realize that any withdrawals that you make from your IRA, your traditional IRA, is subject to taxation. But if you're under the age of 59 and you take money out of your traditional IRA, there is a 10% tax penalty. So just remember, under the age of 59 and a half, you have a 10% tax penalty for early withdrawals, as well as ordinary income taxes. So if you have earnings in the year that you take money out of your traditional IRA, the distribution that you take from your IRA will be added to your earnings, and it's all going to be taxed as ordinary income. But there are a few exceptions to the 10% penalty. The taxes are going to happen and be applicable no matter what. But in a few situations, that 10% early withdrawal penalty is an exception. So let's delve in and share with you a few of those exceptions. Medical costs. So you may qualify for an exemption from the 10% tax penalty if you have medical costs that are more than 7.5% of your AGI, your adjusted gross income. For most people, that is a very high number, and most people do not have that much in medical expenses, but just be aware that that is one of the exceptions to the 10% tax penalty. Health insurance. You may be exempt from the 10% penalty if you're unemployed and you are paying for health insurance premiums. And you have to meet these rules in order to get that exception. 1, you received unemployment compensation under federal or state law for 12 straight weeks because you lost your job. 2, you took the IRA withdrawal in the year you received unemployment or the next year. And 3, you took your IRA withdrawal within 60 days of your new employment starting. That's assuming that you found a new job. Disability. If you were to become disabled, and they define disability as you being unable to perform any substantial gainful activity due to a mental or physical condition. It has to be of a long duration, and your doctor will most likely need to make a written notice to that effect that it's of a long duration or even possibly result in death. Higher education expenses. So higher education expenses on behalf of yourself, your spouse, your children, or your grandchildren. Now that's your children of yourself or your spouse's children or grandchildren. The funds could be used for room and board as long as the student is enrolled half-time, as well as it covers tuition, fees, books, equipment, supplies, and special needs services. So that would be exempt from the 10% penalty again. First-time home buyer. Now, just keep in mind, it's a $10,000 limit. So if you need money to make a down payment or closing costs or whatever it may be, and you are a first-time home buyer. Now, you could have owned a home in the past and maybe you sold it. As long as you have not owned a home for the past 2 years, you could be considered as a first-time home buyer. And you can use this money to buy, build, or rebuild a home for not only yourself, but a parent, grandparent, or a spouse's child or grandchild. So that's the exception to that 10% penalty. Again, there's also the 10%, the exception to the 10% early penalty if you have a birth or you adopt a child. So you can allocate $5,000. You could take out $5,000 in the event that you have a birth or you adopt a child. A qualified birth or adoption distribution is one made during the 1-year period beginning on the date that the baby was born or when the legal adoption is finalized. So you could actually, both you and your spouse can take out $5,000 from your IRAs and not be hit with that 10% penalty. Now remember, you're still going to pay your ordinary income taxes on that, but at least you won't have that 10% penalty. Now, what about a Roth IRA? Now, Roth IRAs have their own rules, and typically, as long as you're 59 and a half and you've held it for at least 5 years, you can take out your contributions and the growth from a Roth IRA. But it is always wise to consult with your tax professional. Before you make any decisions, before you take money out, just make sure that you have a conversation with whoever it is that does your income tax return every year, because we don't want to make a mistake that could be a costly mistake. We will be talking down the road about the exceptions to the 10% tax penalty, which apply to 401k plans. Some of them are similar to the IRA and some of them are different. So in one of our next, not necessarily next week, but whenever, we're going to talk about that as well. You can find more of these educational internet, TV, radio shows on iHeartRadio, YouTube, Spotify, SoundCloud, and of course on our website, which is www.signatureadvisorygroup.com, or you can Google The Sarah Finkelstein Show. We're also having educational workshops coming up later this month and early March. We are doing a Social Security planning workshop. So if you know anybody, any couples that are trying to determine when is the best time for them to start to collect their Social Security benefits, please tell them about the workshop. And then in April, we are going to have a live in-person workshop geared for the baby boomers that are going to be turning 65, qualifying for Medicare, who have lots of questions, and it's all about learning what you need to know so you can be in a good financial situation. Thank you for joining the Sarah Finkelstein Show. Until next time.